Hey, everybody. Are you a loser? Are you a big loser? Are you a lonesome loser? Listen to this episode where we talk about The Biggest Loser and the recent documentary called Fit for TV. Check it out. Welcome to the Gross Anatomy Podcast, where we explore the sights, smells, and sounds of medicine, how it relates to movies, TV, pop culture, books, podcasts, and the world around us. And I am Dr. Jason Cohen.
And I'm Lauren Taylor, and I haven't seen you in 3 weeks.
I haven't seen you in a long time. I know.
I know. You're tan.
I'm a little tan, yeah. And today we're the biggest losers. We're all big losers today. We're talking about The Biggest Loser, right? Is that what we're doing today?
Yeah,
I don't even know.
Yes, exactly. We are talking about something that your friend, colleague, what would you call Dr. Huizinga?
Rob Huizinga. He's a friend and colleague, exactly.
And he was on one of our episodes, which we just re-aired, so you can look for that. But he was basically the star of episode 2 and 3. It's only a 3-part docuseries on Netflix, really.
What's it called?
It's called Fit for TV, The Reality of the Biggest Loser.
Fit for TV. Not unfit for TV, but fit for TV.
I actually thought it was unfit for TV, but it's not. It's fit for TV.
I know, you texted me that. I looked up unfit for TV, but I found it was fit for TV.
Sorry, I kind of thought unfit for TV made more sense, you know?
Either way, they were both cool puns, I think.
Yeah, so I mean, we had him on the show, and we talked briefly about.
We had him on the show a long time ago, right?
Yeah, it was years ago, and it was fun to revisit it. But at the very end of our interview with him, we did get into The Biggest Loser.
We only talked about it a little bit. Was that a pre-COVID? Was that even pre-COVID, that visit?
That was pre-COVID, because we were in the office together, unmasked.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah, we used to do in-person interviews. Remember that?
I know, back in the olden days, exactly. It was good times. Maybe we're going to still try to revisit that, possibly.
Yeah, no, I would love to. But, I mean, if it makes you feel any better, I feel like Smartless, they never do anything live. Like, all the biggest podcasts, you think that they're, together. They're not.
Smartless, they're not live? They're not all together?
Mm-mm. They're separate.
I didn't know that. Separate but equal.
Yeah.
Nice.
I guess.
The reason we had him on the show was because he was involved in he wrote the book that Dr. Huizinga, getting back to Dr. Huizinga, he wrote a book that was then based on the movie Any Given Sunday.
Right. And it came out in an article that you had read. They were revisiting his book and the movie. Did you get a chance to watch the Fit for TV?
I as per your instructions, I only watched episodes 2 and 3. Was that?
Yes, I mean, that's where it gets into the medical aspect of it. And you meet, and he talks about his time on the Raiders, and he was approached by a reality TV exec and about a weight loss show. And he was intrigued, he said, in the docuseries because he had seen how 400-pound linemen, after they had such exercise, didn't want to eat anymore. They didn't want to stay that big anymore.
Right.
So he had that running through his mind. And he was like, is it possible for regular people to work out with that much vigor of a professional athlete?
Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty cool. It was cool to hear and see him discuss that, actually. I didn't know I didn't realize he was that involved in the show. I thought he was kind of, because I never watched The Biggest Loser. Did you?
I didn't either. So that was my same reaction. I was like, oh, I thought he was going to be in it, but not as much as he was.
Right. I thought he was just kind of a consultant, there for the show, but it sounds like he was a huge part of The Biggest Loser. I never totally realized that.
Yeah, and a friend to some of the contestants. I have questions for you based on being a doctor watching this. What were you thinking about people working out until they were basically throwing up liquids because they had nothing in their stomach? What do you think about some of the clips of the trainers?
Yeah, it reminded me of my high school floor hockey practices. When I was a kid. I mean, that's kind of what we went through. Depending on your coach, I think kids, in competitive sports and adults in competitive sports, when they're first training, I think go through all of that. So it wasn't totally foreign to me. Had you ever had that kind of experience?
No, I mean, I grew up like in dance class, but we never went that hard.
Yeah, we worked out sometimes till we were pretty, sick. And even like I also did the whole pledging of a fraternity thing, and it was a very physical. Also, like it kind of felt like we were in boot camp, Army military boot camp, and it was the same kind of experience too. So it reminded me of those two experiences that I had. So it wasn't that foreign, but and it certainly makes for great TV.
I mean, it does, but it said something about like they were only given 800 calories and they had to work out for 8 hours a day. Like that just doesn't seem
Yeah.
healthy, does it?
Well, if you saw, Heisinger recommended that they have more than that. He
Right.
recommended that they have like 1,400 or something calories, whereas, supposedly they were saying the trainers were telling them, or they themselves were deciding, to literally starve themselves. You know, I it's a reality TV show, and the it's reality TV, and
Hmm.
it was good reality TV, and I think that's why it lasted so long, and as much as the gist, the message of the show, of this documentary, is that these people were taking advantage, right? Isn't that kind of the vibe that the documentary gave?
Yeah, and I guess one contestant said she developed an eating disorder, which I mean, I don't doubt. The show kind of came to an end. I mean, it probably came to an end because it was like what, like 17 seasons anyways. People get bored with things. It was on in like multiple countries. Like they said that they made billions of dollars, and I think that's what some of the contestants were mad about. Is like they didn't felt like they were taken care of after the show, and the show was making billions of dollars. So I think, I mean, more than just there was like some bad press that came out, but I think more than anything, they probably pulled it because it wasn't getting the ratings
Yeah,
it
yeah,
had.
yeah. And it was getting negative stuff, but the truth is if you're going on that show after watching a few seasons, you should know what you're getting yourself into. It's
Right.
a reality TV show. It's like going on The Bachelor, or whatever it is. It's going to be reality TV, and they're going to be villains and heroes, and they're going to try to get the best entertainment out of it. It's just another form of sports and entertainment and gladiators and all of that.
Yeah, I don't disagree. They had to send in videos about, how big they were. They knew
You
how
know,
they would be portrayed kind of because they sent in videotapes trying to get on the show, I think.
yeah. And one of the contestants said they wanted, in order for her to get on the show, they made her gain weight beforehand, so she was even bigger, and she
That,
did it, and she did
yeah,
it to get on the show,
true. That's
right?
true. I did not like that.
People.
And yeah, as seasons went on, I mean, you knew how much they were asking of people. Like you saw them throwing up, you saw what they were doing. So if you went on the show, you knew what you were getting into. I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, people at this point with reality TV, I think, even when I was on my show, like I was nervous. One of my fears was, how am I going to be portrayed, on the show?
Yeah.
It was kind of reality TV, even though I was on that show. It was a
Well,
little different. Yeah,
we'll go into that for our audience so that they know a little bit like what you did. You were on Take My Tumor,
Take My Tumor.
and you actually, I mean, you were with patients, you worked on
Hmm.
patients.
Yeah,
So, I mean, it wasn't, you weren't acting in any way, but like you were still scared in how they were going to edit things, I'm sure.
yeah, and sometimes they made us do like more than one take about how I go in to talk to the patient, or they don't want you staring at the camera. So if I or the patient staring at the camera, they're like, okay, do this again. It didn't happen a lot, but it definitely happened a few times where you're saying something, and they're like, all right, could you say it again, but not stare at the camera this time.
Hmm.
That
Well,
definitely happened a few times. In fact, I remembered after one of the surgeries and going to talk to the spouse of one of the patients I operated on, the spouse just kept forgetting not to look at the camera every time I had to, inform the spouse how the surgery went. So we did multiple takes of me saying surgery went great, and then the spouse had to be like, "Oh, that's great," and
mm,
that was kind of weird. Yeah, it was definitely kind of weird till we got it
yeah,
right.
nothing you're used to. But I mean, I watched that show and obviously you came off like you. I don't think they made any weird edits. Do you? Did you have any problems?
No, not at all, luckily. And in fact, I think they probably, one of the things about that show, and they didn't want my input, and that's the bottom line with these reality shows, is they come in with their ideas of what they're going to do, and unless you're one of the producers, which I actually asked to be, and they're like, yeah, if we get more seasons, maybe we'll let you be involved in that side of things. But they said, in the beginning, you're just, the star, the talent, which was basically
Mhm.
what I was. Um, and I always thought that one of the reasons that the show only lasted one season in our case is because it was focused more on the patients. And as much as I think that was great, I think had they focused more on me and hanging out with me and our office and my life, I think we might have, just like the way Pimple Popper, because it's the same producers who do Dr. Pimple Popper. I think she's a big focus of that show as opposed to just the patient. So my feeling is, had we focused more a little bit on us, the doctors, we, there may have been a little bit more. But who knows? Who the heck knows?
Yeah, I wonder if it's because like pimple popping. I mean, I guess it could be serious if you get an infection. I don't know, but because you're dealing with like tumors and like arteries and nerves, it was way more serious.
Yeah,
I feel like they should have like done some more behind the scenes. I completely agree.
I think so. And I think, we had a little humor. And I think that was one of the reasons why they asked me to be one of the docs, is because they knew, I'm not always that serious. And I think that those few moments went well. But at the end of the day, I was just the talent, and it was just one season. And I think, even though, getting back to Biggest Loser, even though it lasted 17 seasons, the contestants were only on it for one season.
Mhm.
And it's not like they were repeat contestants every season. Then they probably would have gotten better compensated and things like that.
Right.
But
I
that's
mean,
not how these TV shows work.
yeah, and people are still willing to go on them, like you said, because some other reality shows, I think it was like one of the big dating ones. It's like they make so much money, but those people aren't paid even like actors or extras. They're like paid nothing, which
Right,
I don't think is right. So there were some lawsuits. I don't know whatever happened with them, but I mean, I do think reality stars should be paid. I mean, they're the talent. Like,
right.
even though they're the contestants.
But they're unknowns, and it's like I was, and it's just one season. It's only
Mhm.
if you get called back, and that's what they said to me. They're like, for your first thing, you just take whatever they're willing to offer you, and then if it gets picked up more, that's where you have a chance. But I think for some of the Biggest Loser contestants, they got to get an afterlife, whether it's going on talk
Mhm.
shows and writing a book and I think that's kind of where some of the Biggest Loser contestants hopefully got a chance to succeed a little bit.
Well, I wanted to ask you about one of them. Danny, the guy that's on there, he gained basically all his weight back. He was like,
Yeah,
and I feel like they just gave him such a terrible camera angle. Yeah, I don't know. It was strange, but I guess he's comfortable with who he is. That's the point. But he went on one of those. He was a winner, and so he went on like multiple shows, like you're saying afterwards. But one was just a show called, I think it was like The Doctors. Weren't you
yeah.
interviewed for that, or were you considered for that show? Or am I
I
making
wasn't
that up?
there was a show pre the Doctors that a million years ago that was one of the reasons that got me interested in the whole idea of Gross Anatomy podcast. The name of the show, I'm blanking on it now. I should have looked it up. The name of the show was Miracle Workers.
Okay.
Um, and and I just finished my fellowship. So this is like 20 more than 20 years ago. Randomly, I got a cold call saying, we're interested in doing this show. Would you be interested? And it was kind of very similar to Take My Tumor a little bit. Although on this show, the doctors weren't the doctors who became the hosts of the show. It was kind of like a mix between Take My Tumor and the Doctors TV show,
Mm.
Miracle Workers. They were kind of just hosts that would go around and talk about interesting cases and things like that, and it would be like one or two interesting cases of the week, and the doctors who got picked to be on the show were kind of like the color commentary kind of thing, and would talk about it and be there and kind of interviewers. And it was, so again, this was like 20 zillion years ago. um, and at that point, way before Gross Anatomy, I
Mhm.
got this random call. I went out, met the producers, and I think the producers was a um, They may be the same people who did Survivor. Garfinkel,
Wow.
Garfinkel is the last name, and I think we started with a bigger group. They narrowed it down, with a second round to a smaller group, and then it was me and like two or three other guys, for a final thing, and they had us on camera. And at that point in time, I didn't really know who I was, and you know, taking it, bringing it around to The Biggest Loser. I'm someone, I don't know. I think we've talked about it before. I grew up husky. I grew up chubby.
Hmm.
And I always struggle with my weight. And even though, looking at me now, you would say, what? But I still consider myself a fat guy, even, which is the craziest thing. Um, and I still battle with weight, and I battle with eating. It's a lifelong thing. And I was much heavier back then, is what I was saying.
Hmm.
And I didn't get picked for the show. The two other guys did. And they shot a few episodes, same thing, just one season.
That actually was going to be one of my questions I was going to get to. Bob Harper had said something about like when you struggle with weight loss, it's forever, or like when you have obesity, even when you lose the weight, it's a constant struggle. And I guess maybe he had a heart attack in 2017, even though he was fit as can be.
Yeah,
Apparently, he said he was dead for 9 minutes, but a doctor happened to be in the gym pounding on his chest. But I
yeah.
guess after that, he had to like get back to weight, get back
But
to
he
who
was
he
one of
was.
the trainers, right?
Yeah, he was a trainer, but I guess like he was struggling. Maybe he was at that time or beforehand. I don't know much
Yeah,
about him, but that's when he said, like if you struggle with weight loss, it's like with you forever. So I
yeah.
was wondering how you felt about that and how you feel now, because everyone I know from being in the office with you tells you that your scrubs are too big, that you're not that size. So people think you have a bit of body dysmorphia,
I
maybe.
do. I
How
do.
are you doing?
Yeah. No, and I think it's two different things about that guy. I think one, he hit it on the nose, which I think people who struggle with weight, no matter what, it's a lifelong thing. It's like, someone who has diabetes or someone who has hypertension. It doesn't go away,
Mm,
unfortunately. And for me, I had this epiphany like 10 years ago, around maybe even a little longer at this point, where like everyone, we all have an expiration date, unfortunately, and I think um, the people that I would look around. What happened for me is I looked around, and the people who I knew, who seemed to have it together, both in terms of work-life balance, in terms of success, were the people who cared about their own health, who really took their own health as a priority. And so for me, I had this epiphany. It's time to start thinking about that. And then, I've been going through this whole weird journey of, being a plant-based guy and all that stuff as much as possible. I'm not a religious vegan, but
mm,
for me, my magic word is strive. And we've talked about that before. And I think it's important to strive to be active every day and strive to eat well every day. And if you're only striving, it's okay some days not to, and you don't beat yourself up so much.
mm.
But it's a constant battle. But in terms of his health thing and the heart attack thing, I don't know if that was related to weight in that particular guy,
No,
or maybe he had
no.
heart disease, or maybe, there was this whole part of the show where they were giving the contestants caffeine pills or this or that. So who knows what this guy, I don't
Well,
want
the
to
guy that
defame.
I'm talking about was the trainer, Bob Harper. So it
Right,
wasn't. So
right.
I don't know if he. Yeah, I think he maybe had a heart problem, but I guess that was the point they were trying to make in the documentary. Like, even if you're fit, you can die of a heart attack. I don't know, but obviously, you as a doctor would tell a patient your odds are worse if you're morbidly obese.
For sure, for sure. And we don't know why he had his heart attack. Some people just have underlying heart disease. Some people, no matter what you do, when your time is up, your time is up. But then other people, for all he's, drinking a zillion cups of coffee a day, or popping the caffeine pills himself every day, or
Right,
who knows what. I don't know anything about him, but or maybe his whole family history. His dad, his grandfather had the same thing, and no
right.
matter what what you do could help, but sometimes your genetics are your genetics.
Right. Well, that was going to be one of my questions I was going to ask you is about caffeine pills because they mentioned that in the show. And Dr. Hazinga was very like upset because he was like, he didn't even want them drinking coffee. He was like,
Yeah, that was
no,
interesting.
yeah, he was like, no caffeine pills. And when he found out they were giving the contestants caffeine pills, he was very upset. And then I guess Jillian had to admit she was giving people caffeine pills.
Yeah, yeah, scandalous. Was there a question in that?
Yeah, my question was like, were caffeine pills like really big back in the day, like 20 years ago? Or do you ever have patients that came in and you were like, you need to stop this? Did you ever experience anything like that?
Never. The only two things that come to mind with caffeine pills are one, when I was in college, remember the pill called No Dose? Do you remember that? Is it still around even?
Is that the one that pilots take to stay awake? No.
I don't even know. I don't know who takes it, but there's some over the counter thing. I think it's just basically caffeine pills.
Okay.
I remember taking, having to stay up one night to finish writing some paper that was due the next day. And I remember taking caffeine pills that one and only time. So that was my only experience taking caffeine pills. My only other interesting fun fact about caffeine pills is, as many people know, caffeine, some people need their cup of coffee to have their morning bowel movement or their daily bowel movement. Caffeine helps with
Mm.
moving your bowels. It helps the colon evacuate. So we actually, I helped one of my partners design a study in patients who had major surgery to see if caffeine pill versus placebo sugar pill after an operation would help speed up the time till the gastrointestinal tract started working, because one of the rate limiting steps in getting patients out of the hospital feeling good after especially intestinal surgery is moving your bowels, when things are going
Mm.
in the right direction. So just fun fact, we did a study of, do caffeine pills help? They do. It's a known
Okay.
thing. Yeah.
So you do use them in that
No,
setting?
no,
No,
I
you
don't.
don't.
Yeah. No,
Okay.
no,
So but you might recommend a cup of coffee to help patients that are having problems going?
definitely. Cup of
Okay.
coffee, cup of tea, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my other question was getting back to the doctor's show. When Danny went on there, they did a skin tightening thing, and they had him like open his shirt like Superman because he had lost so much weight. At the time, he was like the biggest loser of all the seasons,
Yeah.
and so he needed his skin tightened.
Yeah.
And now we see him in the docuseries, and I don't know if he's even bigger than he was when he started the show. It's hard to
Yeah.
tell.
It's hard to, he's at least the same size.
But what happens with skin tightening when you lose the weight and then your skin tighten and then you gain the weight? That was
Skin,
my question.
the amazing thing about our skin is it stretches back out again. It's tighter a little bit, but then over time it'll stretch. That's one really cool thing about skin, is it'll stretch back out. But his skin's got to look interesting at this point in time. And if he loses weight again, he'll have all that excess skin and subcutaneous tissue. And it's been a common operation, for patients who undergo weight loss surgeries too. People have the weight loss surgery, they develop this whole big flap off of their abdomen if they have a big belly. And the name of the surgery is called the paniculectomy. They remove the pannus, and then patients could develop big, flappy arms and legs and thighs. And those are well-known surgeries in patients who lose weight.
So
And
those
they
are
get a
pretty.
tummy tuck. Yeah.
Um, a tum- and so nothing happens in tummy tuck if you gain weight. Your skin
You
just
stretch back out because you don't
okay.
gain weight right away. It's a slow process. So you'll stretch back out again.
Okay, that was one of my medical questions for
Yeah.
you. Another one was Dr. Rob. He became friendly with Tracy, a contestant that was also featured on the show. But she was the one that experienced a medical episode. It was called, what was it called? Rabdomyolysis.
Rhabdomyolysis.
And she had to be flown in a helicopter to a hospital, but she still wanted to be on the show. So my question is, can you explain what that is?
Yeah, yeah. You could die from rhabdomyolysis if not identified, not treated, not dealt with it. It's basically your muscles start breaking down. Is muscle. Rhabdomyo is muscle, and lysis is breaking up. And from too much lactic acidosis too much exertion, the normal cellular function of our muscles stops happening, and because of that, um, you could actually start experiencing muscle breakdown, which isn't uncommon. When you work, lifting weights, you get some muscle breakdown and stuff like that a little bit from weightlifting,
So is
and
this something you might see in athletes, or is this not?
so it could definitely happen in athletes too. But the problem with the breakdown of the muscle is um, that it puts a few things. It puts a major, all the muscle protein breakdown starts going into your bloodstream, and that intense buildup of broken proteins, which are not easy to filter through your kidneys, could put a major strain on your kidneys and could lead your kidneys to fail. So that's one thing, a simplified version of why it could affect your kidneys. And so people who have it initially might notice like blood, what might look like bloody urine, but it's actually the muscle protein that shows up in your urine, and it's not necessarily blood, and that's what could happen. So that's the main thing, the kidney. But then the other thing is it could cause such swelling and problems in your muscles where it happens that the our muscles are surrounded by all of us. We're surrounded by fascia, which is like connective tissue that doesn't really expand well. So if your muscles get crazy swollen from breakdown, you could and it gets so swollen, say in your leg, it swells up so much that your blood vessels and your nerves in your leg stop functioning, and you could stop getting blood flow to your leg. And so what could potentially happen is you could lose, if the swelling either doesn't start getting better. Sometimes you have to get what's called a fasciotomy, and she mentioned it briefly.
Mm-hmm.
But she touched upon that. She said they're going to have to slice open my leg.
Yes, I was going to ask you about that
Right.
and drain her legs. I was like, what does that mean? Does that
So
really
so
just
that's
mean that?
Yeah, so because of the intense swelling from the breakdown and from the inflammation of the muscle, there's nowhere for anything to go, and it squeezes the blood vessels, squeezes the nerves, and you could lose your leg. You could become ischemic. You could lose the blood flow to your leg, and so what happens sometimes in trauma, we've seen in gunshot victims, in trauma, in accidents, or in rhabdomyolysis, we actually have to go open the skin, and not just open the skin, but open those compartments, the fascia around the muscles, to allow it to swell enough and not squeeze everything, to allow it to swell out so you could still keep getting blood flow. And it's an interesting, it's a drastic operation, but we definitely see it in traumas and gunshots and in this type of situation too. And I guess she got lucky enough that things
Mm-hmm.
flushed out, the swelling went down, and she didn't need that.
Yeah, she also got lucky that Rob was protecting her. He, was like, go back on the show if that's what you want to do, but you can't train with these trainers and you
Yeah,
can't, so.
yeah,
But it was cool that they stayed in touch and I guess they ran a marathon together. I thought that was sweet.
yeah. That was pretty cool. I didn't know about any of that stuff. And then the other interesting thing was the doctor, the female
Yeah.
doctor. I didn't know about that.
Apparently, yeah, she was a contestant on the show and she looked fit. Like she keeps up with whatever she's doing.
Yeah,
And I guess I don't know if she still works with him, but
I don't know.
it said that like she just asked him and he was like, yeah, you can be on the show with me and you can partner with me at work. And I was like, what a cool guy.
Yeah, he's definitely a cool dude, and what I like about him is he thinks outside of the box, and he's a thinking guy, and he's all about health and wellness, which is really cool.
He's a writer. I like that part too.
We like that too. We definitely like that too. Um, and then at the end they briefly, but not enough. I would have liked to have, and I'd love to get Rob back on the show to talk about it. I guess about The Biggest Loser, but about what they toyed on at the very end, which was Ozempic.
Yes.
Yeah, and
Well,
so yeah,
so they had some doctor just like briefly featured on the show. He didn't have anything to do with The Biggest Loser, but he was just like what would it look like, this competition look like today? It would look like people just injecting themselves with Ozempic.
Mm-hmm.
And then Rob was like, I don't know, he didn't really want to talk about Ozempic. He was like, Fin was really popular. But, then it was taken off the market because it was causing
Yeah.
heart problems. So I guess,
Yeah.
you want to be careful what you say about Ozempic, but it seems like it's almost like a miracle drug at this point.
It does at this point, and there's definitely complications, and there's definitely issues with it, and it's not perfect for everybody, like anything, uh, but how long has it? How long has because before it was called Ozempic, it was called Wegovy, um, and that's been around since 2017. So 8 years already it's been around, which isn't a ton of time, but it's a
Right.
decent amount of time. 8 years, because it was being used for diabetes, and and the thing they realized was patients on that were losing weight,
Right.
and that's what then led to this whole explosion. But it's going to be interesting. And full confession, I think we've talked about it. I've been on and off those medicines myself as part of my health journey, and
Mm-hmm.
and one of the contestants, I think, even talked about it.
Some of the contestants said it's like, I think two of the contestants were like, it saved me. The contestant that Danny said he heard Jillian is very against it, the former trainer, and he follows what she says. So he
Mhm.
wasn't going to try it. But I don't
I
know.
think I think one person said it shuts out the noise of wanting to overeat, and that's what it really does. Um, and people who are overweight, tend to just turn to food, for whatever. I'm bored, let's eat. Da da da, let's eat. I'm stressed, let's eat.
Mm-hmm.
And what Ozempic does and I don't think it's just on the intestinal tract. I think it's works somehow on the brain too. It shuts that out, and it's hopefully it's not going to cause all crazy cancers in everybody. I mean, there are definitely side effects in patients. One thing is patients get gallstones but it's not just from that medicine. Any
Mm-hmm.
rapid weight loss could cause gallstones. That's what people don't realize. So patients having weight loss surgery, the bariatric surgery, same thing. I do think being obese leads to so many problems, unfortunately. As much as we want to be body positive and all of that, I think, whether it's just the weight on your bones, on your joints, on your,
Mm-hmm.
knees, on your ankles, being able to move, being able to walk, that's just a problem just from the carrying the weight. But then, obviously it's a strain on your heart, and diabetes and winding blood pressure and needing to be on all these other medicines. And then there's an increased cancer risk
Yeah.
associated with it too. I mean, there's so many risks to being morbidly obese. I think the thing about The Biggest Loser and about all of this stuff is it's about lifestyle, and it's about you can't just do it, for a year, for a month. It's got to become your entire life, and it's a journey, and it's eating right forever, and exercising forever, and having a
Mm-hmm.
certain mind frame forever. And there are always going to be lapses and things, and all of that. But I think I don't think that people. I mean, they said they did in The Biggest Loser, that they kept exercising and they kept eating right, but I don't know how that. I don't believe that. I
Yeah.
don't think that's necessarily true, because it sounds like the main guy that they talked about who put on his weight. He said, I was noticing I was eating again, and
Mm-hmm.
so that's a reality. You can't just if you do weight loss surgery, you'll lose weight, but then if you go back to eating crappy, you can
Yep.
cheat that. So it's like anything.
Right. No. No, I agree. And yeah, I mean, I'm trying to make it part of my life. I know you work out for at least an hour every day. I'm trying to do the same.
I strive. The goal is to
Yeah.
strive. Yeah.
No, I'm sure it was hard for the contestants, all the hate, all the
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. Haters want to hate.
Haters want to hate, but
Haters want to hate.
now I guess nowadays you should expect it.
Yeah. Yeah.
What else, Dr. Cohen? Oh, well, at the very end of the show, so the Biggest Loser, the producers made it seem like it was just good for the world. But then they said in 2004 when Biggest Loser premiered, 32% of American adults were obese, but by 2025 that number climbed to 45%.
I saw that.
I was like, is that what? Like, I just don't feel like that's right.
No, I think it's probably right. And America is probably one of the worst places.
You think? I feel like
Yeah,
we're losing weight. No?
not really. No,
Hmm.
I think we're a junk food society. Unfortunately, we're a fast food society.
Maybe that's true.
I think we're more aware of it, but I don't know. It'll be interesting to see the data in another 5 years. But, all right. What else, Lauren Taylor? Anything else?
That's it, Dr. Cohen.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us at Gross Anatomy. Check us out. We love your feedback. Look at Gross Anatomy Podcast, Instagram, on TikTok. Where else? Anything else?
Mm-mm.
All right. Thanks, everybody.